What's up, Bama Insider Nation? Trey Sanders here for our first post-game reaction video of the 2021 season. Joining you from beautiful Tuscaloosa, Alabama this morning. Thanks for being here, guys. A lot to talk about. I'm excited to break down this opening game against the Miami Hurricanes, and it starts with that man right there, Bryce Young. If there was any doubts, guys, going into yesterday's game, I think they're going to be cleared up after his performance. I had doubts myself. We didn't know if he was going to be able to fill into that role. Be the next Mac Jones. Be the next Tua. The next Jalen. But Bryce Young was all of that and more. He looked spotless in all areas of his game. Thought he was going to be maybe a bit more mobile than he was as far as tucking and running it, but as far as mobility in the pocket and throwing on the run, Bryce looked perfect. He was scrambling, he was making accurate passes and good decisions. He looked like a leader. His arm looked strong, his legs looked good, and he knew what he was doing out there. He looked confident. That's the biggest thing I want to emphasize to start. At times last season, we didn't know how confident he was going to become. We didn't know what he was going to look like in 2021 because of the limited sample size we saw in 2020. It was kind of mediocre at best. But after this past offseason, working with Bill O'Brien, working with the rest of these coaches, he looks like a different player. Gained a little bit of weight maybe, has a little bit bigger frame, but overall, it's just that arm strength, it's that confidence. You saw the timing yesterday. The decision-making, all parts of Bryce Young's game were perfect. And that's why Alabama was able to get out to that hot start and really take a decisive lead over Miami. And I mean, the next guy in line, the quarterback that had so much hype, lives up to the hype in game number 1 and looked good against an aggressive Miami defense. We knew a defense that had good cornerbacks. We saw Bryce Young work the deep ball yesterday to Jamison Williams. We saw him work in short distance as well. We saw him throw on the run. And we really saw him take his time and use patience in all of his decisions. Now, like I said, I think Bill O'Brien is a huge part of this. Ever since he's been working with Bill O'Brien, he looks more confident. He looks like he has more knowledge of this offense. It is more tailored around him, and Bill O'Brien made sure to scheme this offense correctly. But overall, I think these assistant coaches, especially Bill O'Brien, were key for Bryce Young and his growth as a player. Talking about these assistant coaches, you look at Bill O'Brien, look at Doug Marrone. That's two areas Alabama really flexed their muscle yesterday. The offensive line looked good. Bryce had to scramble at times, but for the most part, he had the time to make a decision, make the correct decision. I think Doug Marrone and Bill O'Brien have done wonders for this team in the offseason and are going to be great coaches the rest of the way, obviously scheming this offense around Bryce Young. You look at the numbers here. Bryce Young finishes the game 27 for 38 for 344 yards. 4 touchdowns and a passer rating of 181 with a QBR of 94.1. Paul Tyson did get into the game. He was 1 for 1. That gives you a QBR of 100. He had 10 yards and a passer rating of 184. Now, Jalen Milroe did enter the game as well at the end, but didn't record any stats in the air. Had 2 rushes for -7 yards. I don't think that's the end of Jalen Milroe's career. Just a taste yesterday, but good to see all 3 quarterbacks get involved. As we get into this video, guys, I need you to hit that like button for me. Leave a comment. Hit a super thanks as a special tip for the Bama Insider staff. Become a member and go to BamaInsider.com for the latest in Alabama football news. Guys, the receiving core yesterday went crazy. Especially that guy right there, Jamison Williams. He had the long touchdown yesterday, the first of his career at Alabama. And guys, just this receiving core in general. You look at what John Mechie did yesterday. He scored the first touchdown and looked nearly flawless. Obviously, the deep ball was a lot of fun to watch, but the thing I loved about this receiving core, they spread the football beautifully. It wasn't just Mechie or Williams or Bolden or Latu. It was everybody. Javon Baker getting into the game. You saw some youngsters as well. Ja'Cory Brooks got his chance. The sophomore Trayshawn Holden got to step in and get in it and got a target as well. JoJo Earl, a kid that I really liked to watch yesterday. He looked fast, guys. He looked really speedy. And we saw him listed as second on the punt return depth chart there, but he looked quick. It was really fun to see him yesterday, and I'm excited to see what he can do the rest of the year. We saw Jai Hall yesterday as well, another young receiver. The guy right there on your screen, Slade Bolden. He looked very steady, showing that veteran presence that Alabama's going to need out of this receiving core in 2021, but a great start for this group. And like I said, I just love how they spread the ball to all of these different guys. As you look at the numbers here, John Mechie, of course, led the day. He had 76 yards, a touchdown, and a long of 37. Jameson Williams really making a statement in his Alabama debut. He had 126 yards, one touchdown, obviously the long one there on the day, for 94 yards. And Cameron Latu, tight end yesterday, tight end number 1, he had 2 touchdowns, of course, 43 yards and 3 catches. Now, the running backs this season could be a topic of argument. It was yesterday for our Bama Insider crew. Brian Robinson, what is to make of his season in 2021? Kyle Henderson, our managing editor, said it yesterday, and I think I got to agree with him the more that I think about it. Robinson looked slow. He just didn't look like he was what we were expecting this offseason. It's not to take away from what he's done. Brian Robinson is your RB1 and has a lot of potential, but he just didn't look as quick yesterday. I think he's going to have to find his footing a little bit. Jace McClellan, though, looked really fast. I was excited to see him bust out and really use his open field space well. This Alabama offense isn't going to be centered around the running backs by any means, but I think Jace McClellan could slowly take over that running back 1 role and maybe increase the role of the running back as a whole. They're going to work a lot of different guys, though. Trey Sanders, the feel-good story yesterday, I hope this kid continues to get more chances. Man, he looked good. And obviously, the comeback story is amazing, but even all of that aside, just as a running back, he looked fast, he looked shifty. Obviously had the juke and touchdown. We saw Nick Saban getting all emotional for his running back, talking about that story, the car wreck, the injury, everything else that's taken to come back. He has worked so hard. Really cool moment yesterday to see him get in the end zone and score a touchdown no matter how late in the game. Now, Roydell Williams, another guy. He looked really fast yesterday too. He's listed on the depth chart as number 4, really number 3, 4, 5, all the same. But I think Roydell Williams could really bust in and get some playing time as well. You look at the rushing stats from that game yesterday. Brian Robinson had 12 carries, 60 yards, a long of 19, averaged 5 yards a carry. Trey Sanders averaged a little bit over that, 5.1 a carry. He had 8 attempts and 41 yards on the day, and a touchdown as well. Jace McClellan, he averaged 4 yards a carry. He had a long of 15 and 36 yards on 9 carries. Now, a portion of the offense that has gotten some controversy around it, a lot of conversation around it, if nothing else, the tight end group, and really Cameron Latu. What a performance in game number 1. He really could have been your offensive MVP if you look at it. He had a touchdown, 2 touchdowns in A-Day. Well, how about 2 touchdowns in the opener as well? Guys, there's a special connection here between Bryce Young and Cameron Latu. Young was asked about it in the postgame. They both just kind of chuckled. They know that they work well together. We've already seen them connect 4 times in 2021. Cameron Latu is going to be the starter. He will continue to have that role and looked really good in it. But I don't think we're going to see Major Tennyson all that much. I thought going into yesterday they would really split time. But we didn't see Tennyson that much at all. I really didn't see him get targeted that much at all, if nothing else. Now the elephant in the room, Billingsley. We saw him enter the game yesterday, which was a promising sign, which tells you this is something that will probably get cleared up soon, whatever the issue is, keeping him off the field. But I don't know if this tight end room really needs him quite yet. And you saw Nick Saban walk up to Billingsley on the sideline yesterday and kind of tell him, hey man, you know you want to be a part of this. Look at what we're doing here. Obviously, whatever needs to be settled, we'll have to do so quickly because Cameron Latu is running away with this tight end room. The offensive line looked good yesterday, guys. There were some question marks at center. There were some question marks really everywhere except for right guard. And Evan Neal looked unbeatable yesterday. There were times where this line looked a little bit shaky, but Bryce Young responded so well and looked great when he had to scramble. You saw Young scramble a little bit and freeze because he had that much time. The offensive line really opened things up for him yesterday. And I think this offense is going to be able to work without them having their ultimate amount of success. But yesterday they had plenty of it and gave Bryce Young the time he needed to be successful. Now Miami's offensive line, that was a different story, and it was caused by that man right there, Will Anderson Jr. What a game. What a start to this season. And we knew this was going to happen. He is a player that the rest of the country knows about now. Certainly one of the most dangerous defensive players in America, probably the most dangerous edge rush. He got off to a good start. And obviously, two guys, Christopher Allen, potentially going to miss the rest of this season. That is a big loss at outside linebacker. We won't dwell on that too much, but these two coming out of the gate looking so aggressive, busting into the outfield, making play after play, and really making De'Aaron King's life difficult. It made it impossible for him to get a throw off. He was shaken up. He was hurt early in this game just because of how much pressure Will Anderson And this edge rush, these outside linebackers were bringing early on. Anderson looks like he knows the defense better. He looked not even smarter yesterday. He looked like he's done a little bit more homework, like he has a better understanding of how this defense works. And in turn, that made him a little bit faster. Darian Mathis and this defensive line did their fair share as well. They look steady. Somebody said it in the comments yesterday of our post-game show. This might be the best defensive line performance we've seen in 2 seasons. They looked impeccable yesterday. Obviously, Phil Mathis leading that group, Justin Aboigbe, some of these other guys as well. Dale really just having a good day yesterday. As you see in that picture, Will Anderson getting on the line. I think they're going to be a group that's kind of slept on this season, but they really set up the defense yesterday, a defensive unit that had so much success as a whole. And it really did start with those linebackers, as Trey Sanders will look to be the backup for Chris Allen now that he may miss the rest of this season. But as far as inside linebacker goes, Christian Harris coming into this season, not necessarily hype, but if you're an Alabama fan, you really expected a lot out of him, and he delivered yesterday. This defense as a whole, Jalen Moody had the interception. Malachi Moore had the interception. And guys, I want to talk about the scheme of this defense and what they were able to do with it. Now, of course, DeMarco Hellams was not able to play in that game yesterday, so it opened up a role at safety. Usually Malachi Moore is your star cornerback, but Brian Branch can play that position very well also. So they decided, let's put Malachi Moore at safety, and we can put Brian Branch at the star cornerback position. This opened things up and helped them get all of their most elite players on the field. And you saw it, guys. Brian Branch had to leave the game with a slight injury. He's going to be okay, but Malachi Moore, the interception. Josh Jobe, really looking good yesterday. Daniel Wright, maybe a little bit burned, but he still even looked good. It makes you wonder, where was Kool-Aid McKinstry? He got on social media after the game, talked about it, not really upset. He's just going to wait his turn. He knows he's next in line. He's got to be patient. It was game number 1. I think we're going to see him at some point. But overall, this defensive back group and this defense as a whole looked almost unbeatable last night. I think we're going to see that the rest of the season. I mean, guys, this was the number 14 team in the country. This wasn't no slouch. This was a good team. I think Alabama's opponents offensively are going to get better. But Derek King's a good quarterback, and this was a good test for the defense. They really proved themselves in game number 1. As we look at the overall defensive stats, Will Anderson at the top of the list there. He had 9 total tackles, 2 of them solo. He had a sack as well. Henry To'o busting into the stat book in his Alabama debut. He had 7 tackles, 1 solo tackle. Trey Sanders had 6 tackles. He filled in for Christopher Allen. Good to see him get into the game and already make an impact. Josh Jobe had 5 tackles. Brian Branch, 5 as well, along with Christian Harris, Darian Mathis, and Jordan Battle. Those are your leaders on defense from game number 1. So we look at the team comparison here overall. Alabama had 28 first down compared to Miami's 18. That's really where they won this game. One thing Nick Saban did harp on in the postgame press conference, if they want to change something, they had 8 penalties that went for 81 yards. Probably got to clean that up as the season goes on. But game number 1, you kind of expect to see that. They had 77 total offensive plays run compared to Miami's 62 and 501 total offensive yards compared to Miami's 266. Guys, this was a throttling. But I didn't have to tell you that. Something I may have to tell you, though, some of the history of this game. Alabama and Miami hadn't met in 1993. As Alabama did improve the all-time series yesterday to 15-3 over the Hurricanes, they've now won 12 out of 13 of those matchups against Miami. One could argue it's because of the stadium, because of the game maybe. That was the Chick-fil-A Kickoff game. Alabama is now perfect 7-0 in Chick-fil-A Kickoff games. They rank first all-time in that category. And like I said in Atlanta, Alabama improves to 16-1 under Nick Saban and 6-0 in Mercedes-Benz Stadium. Some pretty fond memories. In neutral site games to open up the season, Alabama is now 11-0, and they're now 95-50-4 all-time in 149 neutral site games. But just in the season opener under Nick Saban, the Crimson Tide are 15-0, and that's 7-0 against ACC opponents. In 15 season openers, Alabama has outscored its opponents 610-176. After that win yesterday, Nick Saban now owns a 15-4 all-time record against the ACC and an 11-2 mark in the regular season. Alabama improves to 1-0 on the year in a dominant performance all the way around. And before we get out of here, I have to talk about my boy Will Reichert keeping the longest active consecutive field goal streak in America going. That reaches 18. He had a 51-yarder that hooks inside the post as well. Guys, this was a dominant performance from everybody on the field. You have to hope that that continues into week number 2 against Mercer. I don't know if they're going to have any problems. But until then, guys, hit that like button for me. Subscribe to our channel if you haven't already done so. And go to BamaInsider.com, where you can always find the latest news in Alabama Crimson Tide football. For BamaInsider.com, my name is Trey Sanders. This has been Observations from week number 1 against Miami. Alabama wins it 44-13.